to this episode of the Palmetto Guardian. I'm Sergeant Chelsea Baker.
And I'm Sergeant Tim Andrews.
And today we have a familiar face back with us. It's been a while, but I'll let you introduce yourself to everybody.
Okay, thanks for having me, you guys. My name is Lisa Mustard. I am a marriage and family therapist, and I'm a behavioral health specialist here with the Guard. Been here a while now. Probably about 9 or 10 years I've been working for the Army, the South Carolina National Guard. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely glad. It's been way too long, and things are just getting crazier and crazier, so I'm glad that you were able to stop by so you can talk to us about some of the things that have been going on and how to deal with them.
Yeah, lots of stuff has been going on, right? What'd you say? Past 6-7 months, it's been a little unexpected.
Yeah.
A lot of unknowns, a lot of, I'll just be honest, freak out moments on my end, as well as the folks that I help support, my family as well. And it's been, I feel kind of like we're crawling out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't want to jinx ourselves and say we are, and you never know what can happen next week. So trying to be in that place of expect the unexpected has been my motto. I came up with that back in April. I hope it's okay to ask you guys, how are you? I know we were chit-chatting a little bit before we started, but you took a break from the podcasting a little bit. And
yeah, we both of us were on orders for 4-ish months, and we just went around the state covering all the stuff that the soldiers and airmen were doing to help with COVID and all of that. So definitely was busy, and then kind of slowed back down, and now we're back in the studio and just starting to produce products and get back into the podcast.
Yeah, well, it's been really great to have a way to stay connected with you guys and see all of the things that the Guard's doing to help people stay safe. And that always, when we were kind of going through this I guess it was the middle of March when it all kind of hit the fan, right? Mm-hmm. And I was so overwhelmed and didn't quite know what was going to happen with work and with the Guard. And I just kind of, was waiting and listening for the orders to come in as to how we were supposed to respond to this. And I just want to share from the get-go that back in March when this all started to happen, I was in a lot of the same places that most people were or still are. A lot of unknowns, a lot of fear, a lot of sleepless nights. As a counselor, I like to think that I have my stuff together, but this hit and I really got thrown a curveball for my life and my family. And then on top of that, I have to continue to do my job. So I had to kind of quickly reassess what I was doing for self-care and how I was showing up in the world. And it's been a wild ride, and that is a parallel process for a lot of the soldiers and family members that I support. So I had to quickly kind of get myself back in alignment with how I wanted to see this pandemic and see the new normal. Once again, I always say that with the Guard, like deployment, redeployment, post-deployment, it's a new normal every single time, but that's what life is. We can't avoid change. We can't avoid events happening around us. All we can do is really decide how we want to respond and react to the things that are happening around us, because if we could change those things, we wouldn't have a pandemic. We wouldn't have all this turmoil going on. So yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride the past 7 months, and working from home, seeing clients online, had to quickly virtually shift all that. And I tried really hard in the beginning to kind of suppress it and kind of stuff it. I think a lot of people probably went through the typical, how do I deal with stress in the beginning? And then I realized pretty fast that I can't show up like that. That's not okay. So I got back to the self-care of getting my workouts in, eating healthy, working on getting my sleep in, stop looking at the news all the time, get my information from credible and reliable sources. So I went to my doctor, my pediatrician, and I spoke with them. There's a lot out there right now that I want to encourage folks to kind of, get information that makes sense for them and their families. You don't have to do what your neighbor's doing. You don't have to do what the other soldier's doing. Definitely, get information that makes sense for your life. And that looks different for everybody because everybody's at a different stage and has different things going on. What do y'all, I don't know, I feel like I'm just talking, but I want to get your input because you guys always, you're like the front lines. You have, your fingers on the pulse a lot of what's going on here. So what do you think?
I mean, like you said, everyone's different, and we talked about various topics on the podcast, and everybody's story is different. Everybody's in a different part of their life. Everybody's learning and growing. And so everybody takes this differently. And I like how you were explaining your situation, because even though you're a counselor and you're there to help people figure these kind of things out, that puts a burden on you, because you're a person, you're a human being, and you have your own issues in life and all of that. And then on top of that, people are coming to you with their issues. And so I can understand where it can be heavy on your shoulders, and the lines start to cross. And I mean, Andrew saw me, the stress levels during orders, and just lack of communication, and not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, and having to go from one place to another. And it's all the unknowns. And that's a big thing with the military, is you never know what's going to happen. You don't know what tomorrow brings. That you could get told one thing and something completely different is what's going on, and what's something that everybody had no idea where this was going to go or what was going to happen. It causes a lot of stress, and you don't know how to deal with it because it's something new. There's no answers. You have to kind of figure it out for yourself. So, I mean, we're still getting back into the swing of things. And I mean, I've had stuff in my personal life that's been stressful, and work on top of that. And so, I mean, I completely understand. Yeah. I completely get everything that you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you?
Well, at first, when all this stuff kicked off, I guess with the pandemic and all that, it was weird, and it was definitely felt like getting sideswiped. Like, like, how do I respond to this? And then we hopped on orders, and then it was good, because when we were always busy, we were going out filming how the South Carolina National Guard was helping this community, the state. It was great. And now we're getting back in the swing of things, which is awesome to see that we're you could tell the big difference between back like 8 months ago to now. It's a huge improvement. So just happy to see things going, I guess, back to the normal, to old normal.
Right. It does feel like we're kind of getting back to things a little bit. It's not as unknown. And something that you spoke about was not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring or how it might change. And that's a really good point, because I remember back in March, and it's so clear for me because I got the call that my kids were now going to they couldn't go back to school. It was like a Saturday morning or something. And I was getting texts from their parents, their friends' parents, saying, well, we're pretty sure that they're going to discharge them from school next week, but I'm pulling them out this week. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I'm talking to my husband. I'm like, well, what do we do? What's our decision going to be? And I remember getting that call. It was like Saturday night saying, starting Monday, the kids will have to be at home doing virtual school. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like what in the world is this going to be like? And I remember laying in bed for nights, just like having these like not anxiety attacks, but just like I couldn't sleep. I had all these thoughts, like, because you're reading and you're seeing all this information about COVID-19 and all of these things, and this is just when it was hitting. And I was laying in bed like, we're going to get this, we're going to die. Like, it's going to, okay, I'm preparing for this. What if something happens to me and my kids? And I was just like, whoa, okay, reel it in, because you have a choice here. You can go down that path, or you can reel it in and you can say, what is true here? What is real? What's really happening? You have to get the information. So I finally kind of got myself together, and this quote has been with me for months, and I know I was sharing it with you guys earlier, and it's a quote by Wayne Dyer, who has since passed away when he came out with this. If you guys are familiar with him, you could do a Google search on Wayne Dyer. But he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's a very simple yet powerful quote that I've kind of like over the years has come and gone, but it really started to ring true for me back in March. I had to shift my view on how I was going to see this pandemic, because I wanted to thrive. I didn't want to go down that path of stress and anxiety and overwhelm and freak out, because that doesn't help anybody, right? It didn't help my husband. It didn't help my kids. Definitely doesn't help the Guard, my job. So I had to make the decision, like, how am I going to view this? And so a lot of the times when I go back to this quote, I know it's hard, but I was like, okay, what's great about this? Like I know that sounds kind of crazy to you, but what is great about this? I know it's scary and it's unknown, but man, I'm going to be able to have my kids at home. Like, that's a great thing. Like, I've been saying for years, like, I wish I had more time with my kids. And here is this blessing in disguise. They're going to be home. And it was overwhelming because I was like, how am I going to balance work? How am I going to do that? But I knew that that's a great thing. Like, I'm now home with them. And I know for a lot of families, that's not a great thing. I'm not saying because I was working with these families, that it's not a good thing. It wasn't good for them. But I had to quickly kind of figure out how was I going to continue to stay efficient and effective in my role, as well as now my kids are home. We have a very small house. So I totally saw this pandemic in a new light. And I was trying really hard to be that light for the person that I was working with, and I would, we would talk about the overwhelm, we would talk about the stress, but then I would ask the question like, well, what is great about this? And they just looked at me like, what do you mean what's great about this? People are dying, and I was like, yeah, but what's great about this? We can see this differently if we choose to. Mm-hmm. And I think that was kind of a new idea for a lot of people. So that's really helped me a lot. And I stay to that core whenever I feel overwhelmed and unsure, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen the next day. So I kept trying to think at night before I went to bed, instead of being overwhelmed and stressed, I'm like, what was great about today? What was I grateful for? What am I thankful for? And it could be, it got to the point where it was like the smallest of things, because I was stressed, and, I've got older parents, and they're in a bigger city where there's a lot of COVID going on. And so I was freaking out. I was worried about them, but I was like, what's great about this? Well, man, I'm talking to my mom on Zoom. We're having neat conversations. Like, we're doing some really interesting things, like with the girls watching their and now my mom's like, this technology, like, she's texting me, oh, this is what I learned today about this, that, and the other. So, we have that choice to see it as doom and gloom and just out of our control, for sure. But we also have this option over here to look for the good and to, what's great about this? What am I grateful for? What new opportunities do I now have that this pandemic, as much as it stinks, has brought into my life or our lives? And so that's been real eye-opening for me, just as a person, as well as, a counselor doing this work. I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Have you ever... is that new? No. A new way to think about it?
They've always said hunt the good stuff, and people probably get tired of hearing that. But when there's stressful things going on, it's easy to just go down that rabbit hole and just be mad and upset and frustrated. And your mind gets clouded with all of the negativity. And I recently started, because of everything and just being so stressful, is take everything day by day. Like, what tasks do I need to do today? What do I need to do to get through it? But not to just be a robot going through the motions, but like to be happy, be less stressed, and to enjoy life. And then also to have positive thoughts. If you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, you're still going down the rabbit hole. But if you're thinking, like you were saying, what was good about today, or what are goals that I want to have in the future? What can I do to get there? And it kind of breaks you out of that habit and allow you to be able to find the good stuff. And like I said, everybody's going to have their bad days. Something's going to trigger you. Something's going to make you upset. And at that moment, just get it all out and then move forward and try to find the good stuff out of those bad times.
Yeah, I like that. That's really, and I like how you said you made a list. Because one of the things that I started doing too was the night before I would make a list as to what do I want to accomplish the next day. How many of those are like need to do, have to do, work related. But then the other part was, well, if I have this time home with my kids, what's that going to look like? What are some things that I could be doing with them that I wouldn't have this time if I had to be, doing if they were back in school or I was in the office for 7 or 8 hours or however. So it's, I like how you shifted that. That's great. And I do think that we get really busy or caught up in the have to do. Mm-hmm. How many of those things do I really have to do? Versus how many of those things are also well, the things that we have to do, yes, like for work and to, for our job and for the good of the group, we have to do those things. But at the same time, where are you as the individual in those things? So take time for yourself and to have that awareness. It's all about awareness. It's always about awareness. Whenever you're having that moment, just take a step back and just like, what is going on with me? I constantly do that all the time. People, and I say that jokingly, but it's just part of the work that we do. Supporting an organization of diverse and different people with all different backgrounds and different everything. It's like awareness of ourselves in the moment is so important. And I don't know, I kind of just went off on a tangent on that, but that just reminded me of that as well. So think about when you are in that moment and you do get that clarity, you get that moment of awareness, think about the outcome that you want to happen. Not so much getting your way or getting, your voice heard, because a lot of the times that's not the path that we need to go. We just need to be aware of what's going on internally and just be present with it. And also, one of the things that I like to focus on is thoughts come into thousands and thousands of thoughts are going to just pop into our head all the time, day after day. And if we could control those thoughts, we would for sure. We wouldn't have some of those thoughts. But we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of following those thoughts, And one of the exercises that I like to do when I start to find myself going down a rabbit hole of a not so great thought is just like, I just kind of stop and go, okay, I can follow that thought and go down that rabbit hole and know that it's going to put me really down in there deep. Or I can choose to pull myself back and be aware of this thought and just be grateful that I have this thought, so I can say to myself, Lisa, you don't have to choose that path. You can choose a different path. And that is so freeing. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like I get a little woo-woo and people are like, what are you talking about? But that makes sense, right? Like you have all of these thoughts, thousands of them coming at you all the time. And you can make the decision. If you don't like that thought, you don't have to follow it. We're just programmed to follow the bad stuff sometimes because we're just, I don't know, that's just how we are. But we can flip the switch and decide, wow, thank you, God, higher power, whatever, for showing me that thought, but I don't have to go down that. So I can be more grateful, and I'm going to choose a more grateful approach to it. I don't know. Can you think of an example? Of course, no, I'm trying to think of examples, but does anything come to mind when I say that for y'all? And if not, that's okay. I know
Not off the top of my head. Not on the spot.
But just think about it, as you're going through your day,
Yeah.
After we're done here, think about if you have a negative thought, just practice. I don't have to follow that thought, but I'm grateful that it was shown to me and I'm making the choice to go a different path. But I don't know, that helps me a lot too. So yeah. So when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I just find that to be so powerful.
Yeah, that's definitely, hunting the good stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It is hunt the good stuff. Yeah, and that's something that they teach in the resiliency training for sure. So, yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that you were able to stop by. I'm sure that this is going to continue, and we'll probably have a couple parts to this. Might even turn it into some kind of series. I don't know. Definitely wanted you to come back because we are getting into the holidays and all that fun stuff, and it's always good to talk about that once it gets closer. So I'm really glad that you were able to stop by and talk with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And give us some insight on our thoughts.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm just glad that you guys had me on. Thank you.
Yes. So if you're watching or listening, make sure you like this video. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.